Persia sits at the crossroads of the ancient world. It lies between the mountains of Anatolia, the plains of Mesopotamia, and the deserts that stretch toward India. Civilizations rose and fell on every side of it, yet Iran developed a habit that almost no other region on earth managed to copy. Whenever it collapsed, it came back. Whenever it was conquered, it reshaped its conquerors. It is a place that refused to disappear. This is the story of a civilization that vanished twice and still returned. It begins long before the word Persia existed, long before Cyrus, Darius, or Xerxes, long before the Greeks had even built their first city. In the 2nd millennium BCE, a new wave of people moved into the Iranian plateau. They were Indo-Iranian tribes who lived in scattered settlements and followed a pastoral life. They brought with them early ideas that later shaped Iranian religion, poetry, and social order. For centuries, these tribes lived in the shadow of older powers in Mesopotamia. They were not yet an empire, they were not even united, but they had one advantage others lacked: the land they lived in forced them to be resilient. The Iranian plateau is not a gentle place, it is a region of highlands, dry plains, and sharp mountain ranges. Life here was never stable. Villages had to adapt to shifting water sources and harsh winters. People who survived here had to be mobile, disciplined, and fiercely attached to their identity. That identity is where the story of the Medes begins. The Medes were one of the first Iranian groups to gain real influence. They formed a loose kingdom in western Iran. At first, they were vassals of the powerful Assyrian Empire. They paid tribute, supplied troops, and had little chance to challenge their overlords. Yet the Medes watched and waited. They learned the strengths and weaknesses of the Assyrians. They saw how Assyria ruled through fear. They saw its enemies scattered across the region. Step by step, the Medes began to build alliances with other suffering peoples. Then something remarkable happened. The Scythians, a nomadic group from the steppe, swept into the region and smashed the balance of power. For years they dominated the Medes, raiding and controlling their land. Most kingdoms in this position disappeared. They broke apart or were absorbed. The Medes did not. When Scythian power weakened, the Medes pushed back and reclaimed their territory. It was their first return. Riding that momentum, the Medes struck an alliance with Babylon. Together, they marched against the Assyrian Empire. The battles were brutal. The siege of Nineveh was one of the turning points of ancient history. When the walls fell in 612 BCE, the most feared empire of the Near East collapsed. Out of its ruins, the Medes emerged as one of the strongest powers in the region. They controlled much of western Iran, parts of Anatolia, and even regions that reached toward Central Asia. The Mede Empire should have lasted centuries. It had the resources, land, and military force to endure. Yet it shattered almost as quickly as it rose. Internal divisions, tensions between noble houses, and disputes over succession weakened it. When a vassal king named Cyrus challenged them, the empire folded. It did not fall to a giant invasion. It fell to one determined revolt. This was the first disappearance. But the disappearance of the Medes is also the beginning of Persia. Cyrus was a Persian, ruling over a smaller kingdom further south. When he defeated the Medes, he did not destroy them, he absorbed them. He took their strengths, their administrators, their military traditions, and their alliances. Persia did not replace the Medes, it continued them. Cyrus became Cyrus the Great. Under him, Persia rose at a speed that shocked the ancient world. He conquered Lydia to the west, Babylon to the south, and secured the heartland of the Iranian plateau. His empire stretched across 3 continents. His approach to leadership was different from the harsh rule of Assyria. He allowed conquered peoples to keep their beliefs, their customs, and their languages. This policy helped him build something larger than an empire. He built a system that could survive loss. After Cyrus, Darius expanded the empire even further. He reorganized the state into satrapies, built the royal road, and set up a communication network that allowed orders to travel across Asia in days. The empire reached from Egypt to India. Greek writers described it with a mix of fear and admiration. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen. Then came the first great destruction. After decades of conflict between Persia and the Greek world, Alexander of Macedon invaded. He defeated the Persian armies and marched all the way to Persepolis. The burning of its palaces became one of the most symbolic moments in ancient history. With the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, Persia vanished again. It lost its empire, its rulers, and its political unity. Yet something unusual happened. Persian culture did not dissolve. The Macedonians conquered the land, but the land conquered them back. Alexander adopted Persian clothing and customs. His successors relied on Persian administrators. Greek and Persian traditions mixed so deeply that a new Hellenistic identity formed. The conquerors became part of the Persian world. A few centuries later, the Parthians rose from the northeast. They were another Iranian group who reclaimed the plateau and built an empire that pushed Rome back again and again. The Parthians ruled for almost 500 years. When they weakened, another Iranian dynasty appeared, the Sasanians. They rebuilt central authority, reformed taxation, strengthened Zoroastrianism, and challenged Rome for dominance. Under the Sasanians, Persia reached another peak. Art, architecture, and learning flourished. This was Persia's second great return. The Sasanian Empire eventually faced the Arab conquests in the 7th century. After decades of war with Byzantium, the empire was exhausted. It fell faster than anyone expected. Once again, Persia vanished as a political power. But yet again, its culture survived. Persian scholars, poets, administrators, and scientists shaped the Islamic Golden Age. Early Islamic courts adopted Persian bureaucrats. Persian became one of the central languages of literature and diplomacy across the Islamic world. Even under foreign dynasties like the Seljuks and the Mongols, Persian traditions remained alive. The conquerors did not erase Persian identity, they absorbed it. By the time the Safavid dynasty rose in the 16th century, Persia became Iran, a unified state once more, with a distinct religion, culture, and political structure. It was a transformation that almost no other ancient civilization achieved. Egypt fell under Greek, Roman, and Arab rule and never regained an independent cultural empire. Mesopotamia became a battleground for centuries and its ancient identity faded. Many civilizations disappeared permanently. Persia returned more than once. What allowed such resilience? Geography played a role. The Iranian plateau is difficult to govern from the outside. Mountains separate valleys and regions. No foreign empire could hold it for long without relying on local elites. Another factor was cultural depth. Literature, religion, and social structure in Iran survived by moving from dynasty to dynasty. Even when rulers changed, the cultural system held together. Finally, there was identity. Iranians maintained a sense of being part of a larger tradition that stretched back to the Medes, the Achaemenids, the Parthians, and the Sasanians. The civilization that vanished twice and still returned is not a myth. It is the record of a land that refused to stay conquered. Iran's story is not a straight line. It rises, collapses, and rises again. Each time it returns, it carries something old and adds something new. In the world of ancient civilizations, this ability to disappear and reappear is rare. In the world of modern nations, it is almost unique. The story of Persia is not just the story of dynasties. It is the story of a civilization that kept its memory alive even when its thrones were broken. It reminds us that power can fade, borders can change, and empires can fall, but a culture that adapts and absorbs can outlast them all.